Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining today's daily call. Guru Maharaj will continue with the series Signs of Devotional Service from Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 19. Guru Maharaj?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll share the screen. I'll start the recording, Guru Maharaj. 1 second.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me share. Hare Krishna. I'll turn it over to you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Sanskrit. Srimad Bhagavatam 1-19, a continuation of these verses, which leads up to higher and higher levels of one's advancement in devotional service. If those of you who've been here from the beginning, starting with verse 16, you'll see the progression. And now we're getting into some of the results of the previous verses. And this one is one of the main ones. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatarajastamo Bhava Kamalo Bhadayaschaye Cheta Ekana Vidham Stitam Sadve Prasidati. As soon as irrevocable or irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes happy. Therefore, a living being in his normal constitutional position is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahma-bhuta or Atmananda, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in a state of foolish ignorance, whereas the self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of ignorance, existence. This state of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. Devotional service is not inactivity, but the unalloyed activity of the soul. So here we see that sometimes people think that the more you become spiritual, the less you do, or the more you sit and meditate. But what you're doing as you make advancement in devotional service, the natural activity of the soul is being revealed. The soul is very active in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that starts to manifest as one becomes free from the lower modes of passion and ignorance. These lower modes, as will be explained in the next paragraph, the soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter. So you should know we're in an unnatural state when we are in contact with matter. And as such, the disease activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and speech and sleep. You'll see the lust, desire, and hankering is in the mode of passion. Inactivity is foolishness, and sleep is the mode of ignorance. The effects of devotional service become manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. So if we're still affected by these qualities, such as hankering, hankering means I want something, I have to have it. I really, in other words, a strong desire to acquire something. And that is the opposite is let's see, desire, or desire, hankering, and lamentation. When I get something and then I lose it, I lament. I'm unhappy. So these are effects of the modes of passion. If we are still affected by these, then we are still under the influence of the material energy. This verse is establishing one in pure goodness, or Sudasattva, and that'll become revealed in the next statement. The effects of devotional service become manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. So one has to get free from these lower modes. And that's by following the process as mentioned in the previous verses. Nasta prayeshu arbitration nityam bhagavata sevaya, regularly hearing Bhagavatam, service to the pure devotees. Then gradually all of these unwanted things, such as lust, greed, Greed is another example of hankering, used in another way. They start to disappear from the mind and the heart. And then, as it goes on to say, the devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness. And he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vasudeva. So Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed goodness or Suddha goodness, pure goodness, only in this Suddha state can one always see Krishna face to face by dint of pure affection for the Lord. So Krishna is covered by his Yogamaya potency. And as it says, the world cannot know him because he's covered by, and what is that covering process? It's two. He covers himself with his own energies, and at the same time, we are covered by the material energy. So there's two forms of covering. But as we lift the coverings of the material energy, which is our attachment to enjoyment in this material world, or greed to perform activities that give what we say sense gratification in the lower modes, such as the mode of ignorance, which is madness, intoxication, excessive sleep, and foolishness. In other words, one will talk and act in a foolish way, or general just laziness. Laziness is also part of that. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness, therefore he harms no one. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. Now you might say, well, what does that mean? A non-devotee, even if he's educated, very great, he wears suit and tie, he walks on very nicely, he speaks nicely, he has his friends and family members. He's always harmful because he's under the influence of the material energy. As long as one is under the influence of the material energy, their activities are basically selfish or destructive. Therefore, they are harmful. A devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be the devotees of the Lord, whoever they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. So you see people surreptitiously adopt a certain type of spiritual dress and claim to be an incarnation of God, or claim to be someone who can reveal God to you. And they speak in so many ways, it's all foolishness. They take a few words from the Shastras, twist it around and make it sound interesting to you, and people buy into that because they don't know anything. But the devotee is always qualified in good qualities of God. So these people don't have good qualities, they have qualities in the lower modes, and therefore, how can anyone be trustworthy? These lower modes are full of selfishness or destructiveness. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different, but qualitatively, both the Lord and his devotees are one and the same. So one means that we are non-different in Krishna on the qualitative level, and also we are of the same spiritual nature as Krishna. We are pure spirit, he is pure spirit. We are coming from his energy. Although we are individual, we are still one with him at the same time. That means we can never be separated or different from him, different in the sense of quantity only. He is Nityo, Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam. He can maintain all of us, and we are maintained by him. We can't even maintain ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we try to maintain a family, and we have a hard time doing that. But Krishna is maintaining millions and billions of living entities as he sits in the hearts of all living entities. So he is the one who takes care of all of us, guides us, protects us, and nourishes us in different ways. And anyone who comes and frees themselves from these lower modes, as it says here, Rajastama Tamo Bhavam Kama Loba Dayaschayan Cheta Ater Anadivam Vidya Supersedity means becomes happy. The devotee becomes happy when he gets to the stage of goodness. Although there are two processes to reach the stage of goodness, there is the material process by cultivating the qualities of goodness and the activities of Brahminical life. That is one way to reach the mode of goodness, but that mode of goodness is not stable. It is always being affected by the attacks of the modes of passion and ignorance, and therefore one cannot remain in that mode of goodness. But one becomes Krishna conscious, they are above all of the varnas and ashrams, and they are situated in pure goodness, and therefore they are happy. They develop the qualities that are intrinsic in the soul's nature in relationship to service to Krishna. In other words, they develop all desirable qualities. So this is a progression here. People in the material world are so much afflicted by the modes of passion and ignorance. You see people who are very educated in various types of the sciences, who have a nice material arrangement, who have much wealth. They may also have some prestige in society, but they're never satisfied. They're always looking to satisfy their senses. Prabhupada was saying he sees that when he was in Paris, he saw all the old men who were very old. They would go to these clubs and pay $50 to get into the club. And once they're in the club, there's so many girls, wine, and various types of attractions. And so their lust is never satisfied. Although they may have a wife sitting at home, they're not satisfied. They go to these clubs to enjoy further, or try to enjoy further. And therefore, lust is like a burning fire, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. It's never satisfied. The more you feed the lust, the stronger the lust becomes. The way to not to feed the lust is not to increase lust, is not to feed it. Feeding it is like comparing to throwing a log of wood on the fire. When you throw the log of wood on the fire, because the wood is still dry, it makes the fire go down. But give it a little time, and then that piece of wood will be blazing and making the fire bigger. So similarly, when every time we say to satisfy our lust, we feel some relief, but just give it a little time, and then that same desire and that same feeling comes back, and again we try to satisfy the lust in another way. Therefore, lust is never satisfied. But Krishna says by regulating the senses and engaging in devotional service, one can overcome this enemy known as lust. So a devotee becomes free when lust as they hear and chant the glories of the Lord and engage in devotional service. They get free. So here is the barometer. Here is the thermometer. The barometer is the way to indicate what is happening in this particular situation. So this is the barometer of our spiritual advancement. And if we are still affected by lust, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, greed, disturbed in difficult times, happy in so-called good times. In other words, we are always being moved by the energy. But a devotee is fixed. And when he's fixed, he is fixed on Krishna. He's fixed in his devotional service. He becomes happy. These modes, these lower modes automatically disappear. This verse is more or less the culmination of some of the previous verses. When one executes the previous verses properly, that is to hear and chant the glories of the Lord and to serve the devotees of the Lord, especially the pure devotee. Okay, and so here we go. This is something we can think about. This is a nice particular verse. It gets right to the point.
Yeah. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the beautiful class again on these modes and how it is important come to the mode of goodness, at least to engage in devotional service, and how we can get free from these lower modes, as you said, like passion and ignorance, by engaging in devotional service. So when we regulate our senses, as you also mentioned, when we regulate our senses and engage in our senses in devotional service, we can get rid of these modes and fix our senses and Krishna and engage in Krishna consciousness. That's the only way we can control and come free from these modes. Thank you so much again for this beautiful class. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, if you have any questions, comments, realizations, please raise your hand, or you can unmute, or you can also type in the chat box. Yes, Nuria Mataji, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Her name is Janava.
Oh, sorry, Janava Mataji, please go ahead. I see you. Okay, let me read that. Okay. How, Guru Maharaj, so Mataji's question is, Hare Krishna, do you born with Brahmana or Kshatriya nature, or do you need a trainer?
Well, Kalo Sudra Sambhavam, the scripture says that one is, in this age of Kali, particularly, one is born as a Sudra. But these qualities of Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya are in a dormant stage within the living entity. This is called Swadharma, one's natural material nature. And therefore, in order to bring out one's material qualities, such as Brahman or Kshatriya, training is required. Yeah, and that's where Prabhupada, he wanted to start this Varnashram college in order to train people according to their nature. And then there would be classes given by the Brahmanas on how to train the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas. Sudras don't need training, and further Brahmanas. So yes, training is required in Kali Yuga especially.
Is that answered, Mataji? Are you okay? You have any further clarifications? Okay, from childhood.
Yes, the earlier you start, the more effective you'll be in developing the knowledge. Evaluation comes by the spiritual master. The spiritual master's duty is to see the particular nature of his disciple and engage that nature in devotional service.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for that question. Devotees, any further questions, any comments? So, Guru Maharaj, I have a question while devotees thinking. Mode of goodness and also like mode of transcendental, like coming above goodness. So just like the only difference is like goodness is like it's more like a material energy, but transcendental is like any activities engaged in Krishna conscious.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah. But the qualities of passion and ignorance cannot be engaged in devotional service.
Okay.
The quality of goodness is where you perform devotional service. These are the qualities.
Okay, very much.
So Krishna tells Arjuna, be established in goodness.
So, okay, so as a sadhakas, first we have to come to the mode of goodness.
Yes.
Then, yeah, I can ask later. Maybe Mataji has a question. Sridev Mataji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Sudha. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Dear Guru Maharaj, this this translation verse goes like this: as soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart. So, what is the point of at what point do we reach irrevocable devotional service? Because we are now unstable in our devotional service, we are in and out like that. Is that why it is said that irrevocable? That means 24/7 you are engaged in devotional service?
It means when you're situated on the platform of regulated devotional service, you're engaged fully in devotional service, then the modes of passion and ignorance disappear. One is established in goodness and becomes happy.
So that
if you're in and out of devotional service, that means you haven't fully developed to the point where you have eliminated those anarthas that cause your mind to become diverted away from devotional service.
So this is the platform of Nishtha. That means you're reached
Yeah.
Nishtha?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji, for that question.
And the next verse is Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasoshati Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Labhate Param. This verse is bridging the platform of Ruchi. It's mature Nishtha. It's not just Nishtha. It's the Nishtha that is on the platform of Ruchi. Ruchi means prasanatma, means that the devotee becomes happy. Happy, we're happy. We are, we don't have to fake it. It's not like you have to think, am I happy or not? No, you know whether you're happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. So, devotees, any more questions, clarifications? So, nice topic. 3 modes. Understanding them is very important to progress in devotional service. So, Guru Maharaj, so just again, like we just a further clarification on the goodness, like here also in the like associate, like inactive fool is in a state of foolish ignorance where the self-satisfied Atman and the transcendental to material. So here, like talking about devotees and non-devotees. So just a question, like again on non-devotees. I mean, even like they are connected to Krishna, but they are not in devotional service. I mean, they're not in the ISKCON. Is still like they are considered like a transcendental activities?
Well, transcendental means completely above the 3 modes of material nature.
Mm-hmm.
They may be in and out of that transcendental state. That means they're still afflicted by some of the anarthas.
Okay.
So once you get fully Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Tosatina Kankani, or actually Go to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse number 26.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Let me.
This is the direct answer to your question.
Okay. Yes, Guru Maharaj, I'm going. So Bhagavad Gita,
14.
chapter 14. Okay. Sorry, Guru
Namam
Maharaj.
yeah,
What is the verse, Guru Maharaj?
1426.
Or 1426.
What is it? Rama, no, Namo. I can't think of the first word. It's Mon Bhakti. Let's see.
It got disconnected.
Let's see.
22 to 25, I see here. Yeah. Is this the verse, Guru Maharaj?
No, 26, I said.
Oh, 26, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Yes,
Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevati saguna samatitaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Sudha, read the verse.
Okay, Guru Maharaj, translation. Right? So, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus come to the level of Brahman.
Yeah. So when you're fully engaged in devotional service and you don't fall, you transcend all three modes. You come to the Sudasattva platform, which is the Brahman platform.
Okay.
One engages in full devotional service. As long as devotional service is interrupted, it's not full. If it's uninterrupted, and then it cannot satisfy the self completely. Should not be interrupted.
Okay, very much. So hearing, chanting, listening from self-realized souls, deity worship is very important.
That's the process.
Yeah, that's a process we have to follow. Yeah, got it.
What is the means for attaining transcendental position? Here, we can read the purport.
Okay, Gurmash.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Should I read the purport, Gurmash? Sorry.
Yeah, I want you to get the answer because this is your question.
Okay, Gurmash. Sure, I'll read the purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. So one should not be disturbed by the activities of modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna's activities. Krishna's activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Rama and Narayana. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So, yeah, when you're fully engaged in any one of the manifestations of Krishna, and it's mentioned here, Rama Narayan, or in the Shringa, whatever, then you are on the transcendental platform.
Okay. Beautiful, Vimash. Beautiful. Yes.
Keep yourself on the transcendental platform.
Thank you, Gurmash. This verse is very beautiful. Yeah, we need to read this.
It's completely, it's complete.
I should complete the verse, Gurmash, reading the verse, or should
I think the answer has been given.
Okay. So should I stop screen share, Gurmaharaj?
I'm not the host.
Okay, I'm just checking if you have any further clarification, just any more. That's why I was checking. Okay, let me stop.
The host has to know what to do every minute.
Yes, Gurmaharaj. Yes, thank you.
I'm not the host.
Yes. Thank you for that, Guru Maharaj. Devotees, any more further questions, comments? Sridevi Mataji raised her hand. Mataji, please go ahead. Yeah. Mataji.
Sukava also raised her hand. Maybe we should go with Sukava first.
Okay, okay, Mataji.
You can go, Mataji, first. I raised afterwards.
Okay, so Mataji, you have to decide.
All right, okay, fair, fine. Thank you, Sridevi Mataji. Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Lotus feet. Thank you for the class. I just need to clarify a little bit more on the statement you said that we are not disturbed in our devotional service. Please, can you expand a little bit more on that?
It's called dhira, not moved by happiness or distress. Go to verse number, chapter 5, verse 20. Bhagavad Gita. Okay, read the verse, Sukava 5:20. Okay. 20.
Yes, good much. It's the verse, right? 520. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mataji, do you like to read the verse?
Yeah. Can you just go a little bit up now? That's better. Thank you so much. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant or lament upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. Okay.
Well, the first two is not to rejoice upon getting something pleasant, nor lament about obtaining something unpleasant.
Okay.
That's called dhira, or unmoved by the flickering modes of material nature, which delivers us pleasant and unpleasant experiences. One is situated in Krishna, and therefore they're not moved by but, to come to that stage means to be fixed on Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Krishna.
Does that help?
Yes, it does help, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
It's just like the verse says, not to be affected by the lower modes of passion and ignorance. It's the same thing. Krishna consciousness means undisturbed. So we have to practice that. We have to get more situated in Krishna. Krishna is above the three modes of material nature. As we connect with Krishna, we start to rise above the modes of material nature also. And then we're fixed. Happiness comes, happiness goes. Distress comes, distress goes. Yeah, so we can, again, use that as a barometer for our advancement. It's called dhira. And dhira means undisturbed by the dualities of material nature. And everyone's disturbed by the dualities of material nature, and therefore one has to connect with Krishna in devotional service, and one will be fixed. Then the mind is peaceful, the mind is satisfied, and happiness and distress appear to be just two features of the material energy that come and go. That's all. But real happiness is the soul's happiness in relationship to Krishna, which awakens one's it awakens one's desire to hear more and more about Krishna, to serve Krishna more and more.
Thank you. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so
That's a good
when
one.
somebody asks Prabhupada, let's see. Let's see, what did he say? Someone asked Prabhupada, are you I don't know, something in relationship to being, and Prabhupada said, yes, I'm not moved by the rascal scientists. The scientists are always giving us wrong information in a very, what we say, determined way. They keep telling you over and over again the wrong thing. And they tell you in different ways. Prabhupada said, I'm not moved by such rascal scientists. That's a person who's Dhira.
Thank you.
And
Guru.
then, you know,
Sorry.
weather gets cold, we tolerate. Weather gets hot, we tolerate. That's another symptom of Dhira. The weather becomes the main subject matter of people in general. They talk about the weather all the time, like it's going to change because they talk about it.
Guraj, okay, that all things is okay, but what about the disturbing situation around us? Sometimes they do disturb us, like, for example, at the moment, the Ukraine war. How much we can keep ourselves away from everything. Sometimes it is that bit is very difficult.
There's even people in the material world who can practice this. Like, there was one, his name was, his last name was Franco. And he wrote the story. He was in, Auschwitz during the Holocaust, when he was in one of the German prison camps. And although people were dying all around him, people were starving, people were, suffering in so much, he remained fixed. He remained, although he wasn't so fixed on God, he was fixed in his mind that whatever's happening, there's a positive side to it. And he always saw the positive side. So he never saw the negative side. He kept his mind fixed in a certain way. Somehow he was able to get through it all because he wasn't disturbed by it. And at the same time, because he wasn't disturbed by it, he wasn't affected by it so much. Prabhupada talks about the famous or infamous, Stalin. Stalin had such a strong mind that when he wanted to get an operation, they wanted to give him an anesthesia, but he didn't want to take an anesthesia. He wanted to watch the operation. That's an example of Dhira. But that's material. But on the spiritual platform, our center is Krishna. When we're connected to Krishna, we can be Dhira.
So Guru Maharaj, do you mean the acceptance of the situation, how it is, and take it as a positive is what we should be practicing, is it?
Well, it comes and it goes. Everything, material energy comes and goes.
Mm.
You have to deal with it sometime, but you shouldn't be disturbed by it. Some things you have to deal with, and some things you just have to tolerate. That's all. But dealing with them is another form of tolerance because it allows us to stay fixed without becoming disturbed. Even Prabhupada said, you know, I'll tell you a nice story. Prabhupada was in New York, and he had just come in from a flight. So the devotees had brought a Vyasasan into the airport for Prabhupada. Devotees were like that in those days. Prabhupada would come in, they'd take a whole Vyasasan out of the temple and bring it to the airport. And Prabhupada would sit there and give darshan in the airport. And many times reporters would be there. They would call the reporters to let them know that Prabhupada was coming, and they would come. So one time, you know, Prabhupada came in, sat there, he was talking, he's on his Vyasasan. So one reporter was really envious. And so he became actually agitated seeing Prabhupada get the treatment he was getting. So he spoke out and he said, "Why do you have to sit on that fancy seat?" Now, Prabhupada could have answered in so many ways, but this time he answered in a very unusual way. And he said, "The difference between you and me is I can be in a room full of naked women and not be disturbed." And when his colleagues who were also there, they just started to laugh at their, you know, fellow reporter, as he was defeated really bad. Prabhupada just smashed him down. So Prabhupada was giving the example, yeah, I'm not affected by what goes on in this material world in one way or the other. When Prabhupada was leaving the body, and his body was really racked with so much pain, he wasn't even eating, he was so skinny, he was still preaching. And he was telling his devotees, don't think this won't happen to you, you know. He was giving lessons while he was departing. So here's a person who's completely transcendental to the effects of the material energy, being fixed in Krishna consciousness. So to whatever degree we can connect with Krishna, to that degree we'll be unaffected by the dualities of this material world. Have to deal with them, but we're not disturbed by them.
Yeah, thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That was so nice. Yeah, Sridev Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sudha. Dear Guru Maharaj, to sort of piggyback on Sukhavaha's question about not being disturbed by the things of this world.
Does that answer your question?
I was just going to say, should I say anything more? No, Guru Maharaj, I really do want to become steady. That's why I'm asking. It's very upsetting to me. 6 days in a row, I can do something, and then 7 days, something happens and I'm wobbling again. Then again, I have to painfully climb back into my routine. And it's like, where am I going to get it? When am I going to become steady?
When you know that the material energy is the way it is, and sometimes things are going to be pleasant, sometimes things are not going to be pleasant. But if you become disturbed, how can you intelligently deal with them? You actually disturb the process of, you actually disturb the solution by becoming disturbed. Can't think clearly, because you're attached. You're attached to things going in a certain way. Now that attachment will cause you distress. So every time you find these situation arises in your life, just chant Hare Krishna. Hare
Yes,
Ram,
Guru
Hare
Maharaj.
Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. So, Guru Maharaj, we have one more question here on the chat box by Mataji. Sorry, I forgot Mataji's name. It's Nuria. So, Mataji's question is, if one has Sudra nature, can she or he spiritually evolve and Guru will train her or him in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, of course. That's the process.
Okay.
Yeah, the training has to be there. No matter what nature you have, it requires training. The lower the nature, the more training is required.
Yeah, Mataji, have any further clarifications? Which service? Mataji is asking which service.
Service is part of the training. By engaging in service in a certain way, you're actually training to come up to a certain level of consciousness. So, all right, using the Vanashram principle, spiritual master observes, disciple sees how best they can engage. Just like Janava, you know, you're an intellectual. You should write. You have ability to read and understand the philosophy, so write. If you don't use that intelligence, you lose it. You should take time, you should write a book or write an essay, write articles. And that's Brahminical work. So then you can learn how to write, you can learn how to scrutinizingly read the scriptures and understand some of the more subtle points that's being mentioned and write about them. You wrote one article on Jiva Goswami, you wrote another one on Rupa Goswami. So yeah, use your ability to write. And if you can conquer the language barrier, then you can also speak.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Mataji, any further clarifications?
Remember, Sudha, you're the host.
Yes, Mataji is quiet. So, okay, I would like to ask. Yes, please, Mataji, go ahead. On the question, yeah, please go ahead, Mataji. Mataji is typing, I think. Yeah. Obstacles come from Krishna.
Some do, and some come by way of material energy. But Krishna is also the control. Krishna can give us obstacles, or he can allow obstacles to happen to us. Either one.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji saying thank you. Thank you, Mataji, for that question.
If he gives you obstacles, that's special mercy. If he allows it to happen to you, then you have to struggle to overcome that. In any case, you have to overcome the obstacles.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Obstacles are like opportunities to progress in spiritual life.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Obstacles are opportunities to move forward.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
How does a fighter become better at fighting? When he fights. That fighting is an obstacle he has to overcome. As he wins the fight, he becomes more of a warrior.
So, Guru Maharaj, just a further clarification with service. It's very important as a sadhaka to engage in the service that matches your nature to progress in spiritual life, right? So
It's not always available, but if you're not sure, just ask how best you can serve. This is something we've never given a lot of attention to, although Prabhupada did at the very last part of his stay with us. He said we have to establish this Daivi Varnashram. Daivi Varnashram means you engage according to your nature in devotional service. But nature requires training, and therefore Prabhupada wanted to have these colleges for training devotees to bring out their particular nature and then engage in accordingly. And when people are doing that, they're happy, and at the same time, they're very productive in their execution of devotional service. They're also very creative in their execution of devotional service.
okay, so Guru Maharaj, you said to bring out the nature. That means right now we are sadhakas, we are getting training, so we should wait for that, like until like we realize our
You
nature.
can't train yourself. You have to get training from someone who can give you training. But if you have a certain tendency to serve in a certain way, then a lot of times that's accepted. It's like some devotees are artists, some devotees are really good cooks, some devotees are good accountants. All of that can be used in devotional service.
Yes.
Some devotees are preachers.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I'm
Thank
gonna
you, Maharaj. It's
yeah,
1 hour past.
I'm gonna disappear right now and move on.
Okay.
I have another engagement on the hour, so I have to. Oh, so we'll see tomorrow and Sunday. We need, I don't know if it's been arranged. I spoke with Radha Bhakti to find 2 devotees. I think she's going to be one of them to do tomorrow and Sunday's program. I won't be here either days.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. I'll check with Mataji. Yeah.
Yeah, or Srimati also.
Yes, I'll also forward the message to Srimati Mataji tomorrow on Sunday.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much again for the
Haribo,
beautiful
Thank you, Guru
Haribo.
Maharaj. Hare
share.
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you, devotees. Thank you so much for your beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
Sudha Mataji.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Haribol Sukhabaha. I was just thinking of you. You're always happy. That must be, you must be situated on a transcendental platform. That's good.
Guru Maharaj, it's like a silence on, before the storm.
Well, I asked your husband, is your wife always happy? And he said yes. So there's the confirmation. He said yes really fast, even before I finished the question. Yeah, that's good. So your job is to make your service is to make everybody else happy.
Yeah, that is true. They are happy with that.
Okay. So
It's a small area, Guru Maharaj. I want to expand it.
good. You'll get your chance when we have our disciples meeting to make everybody happy.
Sure.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. I'll end the call here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sudha Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.